Over the years and decades, playstyles have evolved from the changes in equipment, stroke mechanics, and court surfacing. Some playstyles struggled in certain eras and thrived in others. Even throughout a calendar year, the gritty clay compared to the slick grass, or the cold, dry winters compared to the hot, humid summers, all create advantages and disadvantages for every player. The term, quote, meta, in short, refers to the most successful strategies in the game's current state. And since you have a foundational understanding for strategy, we can address the underlying principles as to why turning the knobs of the environment influences the outcome. While you may disregard this topic as applying to exclusively professionals with distinct seasons for each surface, every level of competition is affected as one hard court to another can nearly replicate the net effect of transitioning from grass to clay. While it may be empowering to believe every match is won or lost on one's actions, your reality may be shaken upon understanding the meta and the forces beyond you. While at times receiving the shorter end of the stick, realizing such will allow you to ask the question, what can I do to play my best tennis, with full knowledge of what you can and can't control. In a nutshell, slow courts favor brawl and fast courts favor dive. When the courts are slow, rhythm is greatly enhanced. Both players are able to stay balanced, have additional time to set their feet, and take healthy cuts at the ball to exchange energy. Generally speaking, slower courts have a grittier surface, which amplifies the effects of topspin. The friction upon bouncing creates more vertical velocity at the expense of horizontal velocity, making it difficult to deflect pace and requiring generating pace to hurt the opponent. Additionally, balls bouncing outside the strike zone makes the exchanges very physical with smaller windows to finish, leading to longer rallies. When the courts are fast, finishing shots are greatly enhanced. The threshold to win the point by, quote, breaking the cap of what your opponent can handle becomes much lower, whether it's an ace or an angled off volley. Generally speaking, faster courts are typically more slick, which nullifies the effect of spin. The top spin bounces forward instead of up, so the extra energy expended to create spin yields a smaller reward because not only does a ball stay in the opponent's strike zone, the recoil from swinging faster makes it harder to balance and recover. As a result, the pace can be easily deflected for effective counterpunching, which makes generating pace far less important when the court already encourages fast exchanges. A brawler's dream would range from clay to a gritty hard court, which guarantees ample energy exchange, while a diver's ideal would be grass to a slick hard court featuring the skills to finish. So where does poke come into play? Depending on the type of poker, there are advantages and disadvantages. Fast courts benefit the shorter, more mobile pokers who can easily get in position and deflect balls that are hard and low. Slow courts benefit the taller, more powerful pokers because quick first steps are not as necessary, while generating pace from their swing leverage allows them to punish mistakes from more situations. Generally speaking, strike zone is super important, so it's tough for shorter players on slow courts to counterpunch balls above their shoulders, and taller players on fast courts to handle hard struck balls down by their kneecaps. Reflect back on the triangular relationship where brawl beats dive, dive beats poke, and poke beats brawl. Even though brawl beats dive, a very fast court weakens brawl and strengthens dive to where dive wins on average. Even though dive beats poke, a very slow court can weaken dive to the extent where it's a more even matchup. And even though poke beats brawl, on a very slow court can strengthen brawl to the degree it nullifies the advantage. The most typical example would be the best dive players like Federer or Sampras struggling at the French Open compared to Wimbledon. Now we reach the question of what to do. Taking a video game analogy, sometimes the developers choose to modify the game, which happens for a number of reasons, ranging from player feedback to viewership to ignorance. Most changes seem as innocuous, such as, say, lowering the health points of the sniper class by 10% or giving the machine gun characters 5% more damage. Some players have the skills to adapt, but it's not uncommon for professional players to lose their jobs on their respective teams. The team cannot wait for their impacted comrade to develop new skills with a new weapon or character because they need to win right now. In many cases, there's nothing you can do in the short term except fight with the tools you have and go back to the drawing board in practice. The best way to adapt in the near term involves changing your racket and or strings, as new equipment can take a player with the same skills and completely transform their playstyle. Be careful with too much experimentation though, as it can be frustrating without a systematic framework, but that will be provided later in the series. If dramatic changes aren't feasible, or if you play in radically different environments that require a dive versus brawl-centric style from one day to the next, you may consider tweaking the dials to balance your strength with your weakness. At some point, a versatile enough skill set and sound strategy is the better long-term solution. But the physical limitations of any given equipment may greatly hinder a specific skill. Pete Sampras's heavy 85 square inch pro staff, even in the hands of Rafael Nadal, will not feature the brawling skills necessary to conquer the red clay of Roland Garros.
With my style of play, I was an attacking player, I was a serve and volley player, and that's not perfect on clay. Plus, your defensive strategy has to be better than your offensive.
Serve and volley for 2 weeks, that was the tough part of it, to play really well for 2 weeks on the clay.
Maybe tried a bigger racket at the French, help out a little bit. I could have worked a little harder. I mean, I worked hard, but, you always look back at your career and you feel like I should have done this or done that.
For better or worse, the universe works a certain way, and it's our job to be aware of where and how we fit in. From there, we can devise a game plan by making the necessary trade-offs to accomplish our goals. Rarely do things stay the same, but what can remain constant is the underlying frameworks that help us navigate foreign situations. We will continue to undertake the journey to understand reality, to both corroborate and break our former hypothesis. But in the meantime, feel free to use it as a starting point.